So, your favorite familiar suffering, if it is no longer allowed, when you want to do it, the rope to climb out of that hole is, what's the smallest step I can do to help me move out of the desire to familiar suffer right now? What's the smallest step I can do to move out of the desire to familiar suffer? Who can just shout out their familiar suffer? I'm not enough. Good. Thank you. I'm not enough. So you go to the gas station and you put gas in the car and you forget to wash the windshield. I'm not enough. Look at that. There's a bug. I should have washed my windshield. I'm not enough, right? You can just find, and you guys can all love that one, right? Oh, God, I got that one. It's not to say you don't have more than one familiar suffering. You'll just have a favorite. So we can all get into I'm not enough. The next time I'm not enough comes out of your mouth or out of your head or you think it, using our ridiculous gas station example, you can say, I'll pull into the next gas station. You act rather than just self-flagellate with the thing, you know? I'm not enough, I'm not enough, look at those bugs, I'm not enough, gas station goes by. I'm not enough, I'm not enough, I'm not enough, another gas station goes by. We'd be riding the car just going, what? Like, seriously? Really? That's what you're going to do? And you guys will choose familiar suffering over step-by-step action all the time. You know it. And then we were going to ask Veronica to bring like a car, and we had this whole car thing we were going to do, but then she was like, I had to ask John if the kids have cars, and I've never seen them play with cars. I don't want to bring the car. And then it got lost in the day's events. But our idea was that, and it came up, we recorded the answers to the guilt and shame questions you guys all submitted. So that's coming up here pretty soon too. Veronica will have it for you. But one of the things that we really saw in the guilt and shame talk was that so many of the guilt shame things are this idea of this familiar suffering. Like my guilt and my shame is just the familiar suffering place I park myself. You look like a car. And you're in the car and you've got the emergency brake on. And you're revving the car. And so it kind of wants to go, but it can't go. Because the familiar suffering emergency brake is on there. And you'll hold your foot on there to keep yourself in a place where you aren't challenged. Now, this is careful of using this word challenged. We're not to say that it's easy, because that word suffering is in there for a reason. It's just familiar, so that the challenge of new isn't something you have to deal with. You'll deal with the familiar pain before you'll deal with challenge in so many cases. So it's easier to be in familiar pain of driving the car with a parking brake on, or what we had, the image we had was that you're driving along and all of a sudden you decide to familiar suffer. It's like you just park the car. Put the emergency brake on, rev it, and just familiar suffer, familiar suffer, familiar suffer, familiar suffer. Instead of like, we're using the funny example that we come from yours, let the brake off, put the car on the road, and take action toward the thing that you're using as the reason to beat yourself up. You know, we only have one rule, and that's you don't get to be mean to yourself. And back in the day, we would say, if you wouldn't say it to the 4-year-old child of your best friend, you can't say it to yourself. That's still a great way to say it. But now it looks more like being mean to yourself is using your favorite familiar suffering to protect you from transformation. So you'll all say, I want my life to be different, I want my life to be different, I want my life to be different, but I'm going to sit here and familiar suffer instead of take that one little step. Because that one little step, you don't know what's next, and the uncertainty thing kicks in. Remember we did like 5 weeks on uncertainty? Because we had to upgrade your relationship to uncertainty so that you would be able to handle the fact that instead of parking your car in the familiar suffering parking space, you're going to drive wondering where that next gas station is, not knowing. And when I pull in, you know, are they going to give me grief? Because all I'm doing is washing my windshield instead of just buying gas. Or are they going to have the paper towels? Or whatever it is you want to worry about in our ridiculous example. Who else has a familiar suffering? Anger. Yeah, I'll just get pissed. It's just easier. It's easy. My body does it. I know exactly how to go. Something happens, I'll just be angry first. Okay? Just be angry first. Why not start there? And it keeps you from having to check in and see what's really true. Gives you a parking space. Can you feel how it's like a parking space? He's like, I'll just park in anger. And I'll sit here. And the funny thing is you may be angry at someone for what they did, but against it's not your preference, XYZ, but all you're hurting is yourself. Right? Because you're not in your truth. You're not emanating what you know you want to emanate to the world. And you're cutting yourself out of the opportunity to explore what else is there. I don't get to explore what else is there because I'm familiar suffering instead. Disappointment. I don't get to find out what's really there because I'm parking myself in disappointment rather than letting revelation, insight, show.